Last year, the Constitutional Court ruled that the Electoral Act was unconstitutional because it did not allow independent candidates to contest provincial and national elections. The ruling gave Parliament till June 2022 to amend the Act and bring it in line. Last week, the Electoral Reform Committee looking into this set for the first time its chairman, one of the writers of the South African Constitution and a veteran of the freedom struggle, and former cabinet member Valli Moosa joins us now via Zoom. A very good day to you. Thank you so much for making the time, Mr. Moosa.
Good morning, Desiree, and firstly, happy Easter to you. You're one of the unlucky ones who's having to work, and also happy Easter to your viewers.
No, thank you very much. You have said that this is the first time since 1994 that the country has a real opportunity to improve its electoral system. If successful, how can this process change the face of South African politics?
Well, Desiree, the first thing to say is that the current electoral system that we have, which is the pure proportional representation system, we came up with this system in 1993, 1994, specifically for the purposes of conducting the first democratic elections in South Africa on the 27th of April, 1994. At that time, we didn't have a voter's roll at all. We didn't have a common citizenship, so people had different types of ID documents. We didn't even know how many people exactly there were in the country at the time. And then we had to conduct the elections in quite a rush because the country was falling apart. Chris Hani was assassinated on this weekend, of course, as you know, in 1993. And there was a great demand that the apartheid system must be ended and we should have elections. So the pure proportional system was set up for practical reasons and one which would be easy to conduct and simple to understand. At the same time, it was one which had other advantages, like, for example, it could help us to promote national unity, which was sorely needed at that time, and of course, which is still needed right now. It could also help us to promote gender equality. But it was specifically designed for the first election. And what was thought at the time is that after the 1994 elections, when you have a democratic parliament, the democratic parliament itself can sit back and elected representatives who will have the mandate can think up and adopt a new permanent electoral system. Of course, as it turned out, none of that happened. And the temporary system became the permanent system, as happens in so many things. And so we went on with this system. There were many discussions about how to reform it, how to change it, but it never really happened. And so last year, the Constitutional Court, in its judgment, found that the Electoral Act as it stands is in fact unconstitutional and that it needs to be changed. And the reason it found that the Electoral Act is unconstitutional is because our current system does not allow voters to vote for a person of their choice. Voters can only vote for political parties. And the Constitutional Court says that in terms of our Constitution, if a voter does not want to vote for any political party, but wants to vote for a person who will represent his or her area or constituency in Parliament, he should have the right to do so. So therefore, they've given Parliament 24 months in which to amend the Electoral Act. The Minister of Home Affairs, who has the responsibility for elections, contacted me not a long time ago, dragged me out of my retirement and said I should chair a committee of people who would come up, who would design and put forward a proposal for a new electoral system. Now, this is... Sorry, Desiree.
I was saying we were actually having a conversation with Mmusi Maimane a few moments ago. You will have seen the conversation in the past weekend about him and Tony Leon. And he's one of the few political leaders who've indicated a desire to run for president independently. How much appetite is there for this in the country?
Well, I must say that we're still trying to gauge public opinion and expert opinion on this matter. So it's just a little bit too early for me to say exactly what our proposal is going to be. But there's a huge appetite for electoral reform. We held public hearings last week, and we invited a number of people to give us their views on what should happen. Almost everybody had said that there should be substantial changes to the current electoral system. But what I found most interesting is all of the young people who spoke to us about their views, and there were some very prominent young people representing youth organizations. They were all of the view that they wanted some or other form of direct representation. They want members of parliament, individuals to come to them, ask for their vote, and they must have the choice either to vote for the person or not vote for it. So there is a huge appetite. And like you said, Desiree, this is a unique opportunity for us to come up with a new electoral system. Change it. The new one will be slightly more or less the same as it is now, or it could be substantially different.
Yeah.
And these are opportunities that do not arise often in the history of a nation, because this is quite a big constitutional thing to do. And we need to think very carefully about what we do here, because the new electoral system must be one which has durability and sustainability. It shouldn't be one that only makes sense today, but in 10 or 20 years' time, it won't make sense anymore. So in a sense, we have to be forward-looking, look into the future, have some sort of vision about what will be good for today and for tomorrow also. It's quite a big ask, and I must say we do it with a great deal of nervousness, because you could get it wrong.
Yeah.
But fortunately, there's been so much debate in society over the past few decades that we can accumulate all of this and probably come up with something which will at least be quite a bit better than what we have today.
The committee that you chair, how is it constituted, and what are your thoughts about completing your work on time by 2022?
On the committee, we have, I think the Minister of Home Affairs has constituted a really competent committee, and I'm pleased that I have that kind of committee. One of the members of the committee is Advocate Pensi Klakula, who was the Chief Electoral Officer for a number of years. As you know, she was head of the IEC and has phenomenal experience as far as conducting of elections is concerned. We also have Mr. Norman du Plessis, who was the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer. So it brings experience there. And then we have Professor Daryl Glazer, who is a political scientist from Wits University. And his area of research has been electoral systems. We also have a political scientist from University of Pretoria, Dr. Tembile Mbete. Then we have a prominent senior counsel, Advocate Vincent Maleka. We also have Professor Michael Sutcliffe, who has played a big role in the past in the demarcation of local government boundaries and such things, and he's an expert in his own right in this field. I may be forgetting one or two people, not so certain about it, but it's a very competent committee, and I'm pleased that we have a committee of people who bring a wealth of experience for us to do. You had another question other than, will we meet the timeframes? Desiree, we have to meet the timeframes. The Constitutional Court has given Parliament and the government 24 months within which to amend the law. And that's a decision of the Constitutional Court. And so there isn't much of a choice but to do it within that time frame. And I'm one of those who believes that when the highest court of the land makes a decision, that decision must be considered to be the last word. So we are working with that kind of time frame, which means that probably in June or July this year, we will put forward a proposal, maybe an initial proposal, maybe the final proposal, but I don't see us, because we need to give the parliamentarians about 1 year to go through the parliamentary process to pass the law. Desiree, if I may, with your permission, invite your listeners to write to us if they have views on this matter. We'd like to hear as many views as possible, and people may put forward options that we haven't really thought about. I don't know if it's possible to display the email address, but the email address is sols, SOLS, at dha.gov.za. Sorry, I'm using this interview or misusing it to advertise, but we'd like members of the public to be able to contact us, and that's their email address.
Absolutely, Mr. Moosa, thank you so much for making the time to talk to us. We hope to have you back another time, just in terms of progress.
Thank you, Desiree.
Valli Moosa is a former cabinet member, one of the scribes of the Constitution, and a veteran of the freedom struggle. He's talking to us now about his work with the Electoral Reform Committee, tasked with amending the electoral law.